Coding. Today we're going to finish up the one-page website we've been working on, the Kafka project. So we'll close this. As you can see, I've got my split panel again. I've got my HTML at the top, and I've got my style sheet down at the bottom. Since I'm going to work on the HTML first, I'll kind of minimize the amount of space I'm dedicating to that. We're going to add a couple of things, just two things really, to our HTML document. So inside the header, we're going to add an image. So we use the image tag img, and the image tag wants to know what image we want to use. It wants the source file, and we use src, which is source without any vowels, equal and quotes, and so I left out the equal sign, didn't I? Equal. Try it again. When I do that, it shows me a list of image files that I have available. Shows other things as well, but the one I want is the big bug-big.png. We gave that some styling, which we will review in a second. We could also give it a title. This is not essential, and we'll see what it does in a second, but we'll just call it the bug. And then we end our tag. And make sure we save that. And I'm going to save this as Kafka. I'm going to call this final because there's not a lot to do to it, so it will be our last version. And I already have one. All right, so I'll call it last for now, but you can call yours final. You shouldn't have that in there. Okay. The other things we put in last time should all still be here. We've got our spacers, we've got our H4s with the various parts listed, and what we're also going to add is a footer at the bottom of the page. And I might as well move that over, and we'll put it in the footer. So footer is an HTML tag. It creates a box like everything else, kind of like a div. So HTML has gone through various phases where they use kind of generic things like divs and spans and things, and then now and then they decide to add things that sound more like parts. So you have things like header and footer. Essentially, most of them do the same thing. They make a box and you put stuff in it. But in terms of looking at your page and understanding its organization, these more semantic or meaningful words are sometimes easier to use. Inside of our footer, let's just put a paragraph, and we're going to say coded by, and then put in your name. And we can get rid of the extra space. Again, spaces like this don't really matter. Put 10 returns in there. That would not show up on your code at all. I mean, on your preview. And we'll save that. And that should do it for the HTML part of our page. So now we want to go through our styling and see what else we need to add. So we'll open up our style sheet. You could put a comment in your style sheet, and to do that, use command/. So command and slash, and it inserts basically a slash, an asterisk, and then an asterisk and a slash, and you can type a comment in here. Style sheet for the Kafka on page site. And so this is just ignored by the browser. It's just a note to ourselves. You could put your name and date in there, whatever you want. Okay. And So we've got the background color set. We've picked Palatino. Let's look at a way we could, maybe I would like to have all my headlines centered. And so to do that, I could do H1, comma, H2, comma, H3, comma, H4, and then put in my curly braces. Okay. When we have commas separating our selectors, it means that whatever style we apply will be applied to everything. So here I had to do it separately because I wanted different information. I wanted different font sizes. But if I wanted to assign them all the same color, or in this case I want to set the text align to center for all of my headings. I could include H5 and H6. Those are the numbers that are available, but we're not using them, so no reason to clutter up my style sheet with that. And I'm going to make my H1 a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make that 56 points, and I'm going to set a font variant. Just wrong place. H1 font variant. If I can spell variant. And what I want is something called small caps, and we'll see what that looks like after we finish this up. And then we've got our H2, 24, that's all right. Let's make our H3 a little bit smaller. Make that 14. And let's style our H4. We didn't do that before, so we will do it now. So our H4 is the thing that says like part 1, part 2, part 3, etc. And let's make the font size 16 points, PT. Let's make the color dark red. And let's do a margin top of 10 points and a margin bottom of 12 points. So we're just putting a little space around things. And whenever you see red showing up on your screen, it means you need to fix something. We'll make these small caps as well. So font, variant, small caps, and padding bottom, and we'll make this 4 points. So margin is the space around a box. The padding is space added inside the box. So for instance, if we gave this a background color, the background color would go into the padding area. It would not go into the margin area. And we're going to put a rule across underneath all of our H4s. And we can do that by putting a border, and we're just going to do a border bottom. There's also an HR hairline rule, but the border properties gives us more control. So we're going to do 1 point. We'll make it brown, and we will make it solid. You can also do dotted lines and double lines, a couple other effects. So that's all the styling for our H4. And we'll look at our paragraph. We're going to take this down to 14, and we're going to give it a little more space, 14 on 22, and we're going to do a little margin on our paragraphs. And when we do margin, if we don't do like margin hyphen something, this will apply potentially to all of our margins. So there's 4 margins, top, right, bottom, left. That's the order we enter them in. So it's kind of clockwise from noon. So we're going to put 0, 2 pixels 0.8 pixels. And when we look at the page, I'll explain why we're doing that. But we're just going to put that in. And let's do a text indent. So this is like a paragraph indent. Instead of putting space between paragraphs, we're going to indent our paragraphs. So this margin 0 will take out any. So again, top, right, bottom, left. So we're going to do our text, and we want text indent. And let's do, we're going to do 2 M's. An M is a typographic term. When you take type class, you'll get all this stuff, but it is, an M is the same as the point size, the current point size, so it's not a specific unit. If my text is 14 points, then an M is 28 points. If my text is 30 points, an M is 60 points. So this is basically doing an indent based on the size of the type. We're going to also put in a style for the first paragraph. We could do this a few different ways, but we'll do it this way. We're going to make a class, and I'll just call it first paragraph. And what we're going to do is make our first paragraph of type a little bit bigger. So we'll make the font size, so let's do 17 points. And we're going to make the line height. Again, that's what we would call leading in graphics, but we'll make it 25 points. And we're going to put a little extra margin on the bottom of this, so margin bottom, and we will make it an extra 4 points. Okay, we'll save that. All right, so through the rest of that, I think that's it for our style sheet. So let's save that. We need to make one more addition to our HTML, and that is we need to actually use this style we added to the first paragraph. And we'll do that here. So inside of the tag, right? So between the angle brackets, so P space class equal, and then we type the name of the class. Remember, we don't put the period in when we actually use the word class. When we define it, we need to do that, and we save it. So let's see what our page looks like now. All right, there's our page. So our bug's showing up. Let's see if we've changed our type. So this was, we talked about small caps. Small caps basically, if I've typed something in upper and lower case, the things I typed in uppercase will be larger, but everything will actually use uppercase. Just changes the size a little bit. And so we also used that for our part 1, etc. So there's our first paragraph. And this kind of thing of putting larger type at the beginning of a section just helps lead the reader into it. Some bigger type, easier to read, and scroll through. I noticed down at the bottom that I did not, I neglected to finish styling my footer. So we'll do that, and then it'll be a wrap. So close that. So we're going to go to our footer. We added it in here. I put my name in it. So let me pull up my style sheet. And I'll put that down at the bottom. Footer. And let's give it a background color. And we'll just use something in here, burly wood. Okay. And let me scroll that up. Let's give it a height of 50px. And we'll give it a margin top just to push that down a little bit of 20px. And some reason it decided to do some funky spacing here for me again. Alright, so we've got everything lined up. We'll save that. And I'll click up here. And make sure I've saved everything. So I'm going to go File, Save All. I deleted the final version, so I'm going to call this one Final because that's a better name for it. So I'm going to save as, make sure it's HTML. I'm going to call it Kafka Final. Save that. Then to preview it properly, instead of clicking the little preview button, which has some glitches in it, I'm actually going to go to my browser and go to File, Open File, and find my folder. There it is, and there's my Final, and open it up. And there it is. So I'll scroll down and make sure my footer is showing up. It is, I could fix that a little bit. I'm going to center that type, and for some reason my margin top is there. I didn't style the type inside of the footer, but you can do that. We're just going to make it, center it and put a little spacing on top of that paragraph. So let's see if our clicks are working here. So part 3, part 2. So it jumps to those, fine. Again, part 4 can't go quite there because the page just isn't deep enough. And back to the top, and we're at the top. And again, that's the thing that doesn't work quite right in the brackets preview. So that's it. I'm just going to go back in and do that last thing to my style here. And so I'm going to style the paragraph inside of the footer. Again, I don't know why I decided to start indenting everything, but footer paragraph. And let's give it a text align center, and let's make sure our text indent is 0 because we don't want it to be indented and then centered. It'll be off center. And let's give it a margin top of 20 pixels, and let's do our font family. I'll do my Gil sans again, and then sans serif, and font size 14 points, and I'll save that. Alright, so now I can preview it here. This time I will use the preview because I just want to make sure my footer is down there. It looks okay. Alright, I could probably put a little more margin top on there, so might as well finish that. See why I didn't do that, margin top. That will just make padding top. And see what that does. Preview it. And now, of course, it's doing both padding and the margin. Weird things. Take that out. I'm going to, it's a paragraph, it's in the footer. We'll just put a little less padding. Padding top. 10 points. I just kind of want to get it centered in there, or this close at the end as well. Try and make it look right. All right, and there it is. And that's our one-page site.